All right. So I'll start the glyphs demo for today. So here we have the glyphs file, and then we'll go over like the renaming font file question first. So if you do Command I or open font info over here in the files, then you get like this window which gives you a lot of information about the type. And so here what you want to do is, see how it says new font over here? Name this as, I don't know, awesome font. And then this will be your family name when it shows up in your interface. And then for each for each instance, so here like you can add an instance, and then here it says regular, so this is where you can say like bold or italic. And then so if you have like multiple, here will be like, okay, so when you export like Command E, it'll say awesome font regular, awesome font italic. Yeah.
Because I only did it, I thought the masters was like the slide for everything. So.
No. The masters is something that exists within a glyphs file, but when it usually exports only the instances. Yeah. So masters is a name that it's confusing because if you have a regular master, you should always name the instances regular also, so it'll look the same. But like just keep in mind the masters is sort of like where your let's say like if it's like a Adobe reference, is that like masters is kind of like where all your original like Photoshop information lives, but like when you export it into like your specific JPEG or whatever, then like that's sort of like instances is what tells like what files to export to. Does that make sense? I know it's like kind of confusing, but we'll cover it more when we get to like multiple masters, because then we'll be able to see, because right now you only have like one master file that is exporting into like the one instance, so you can't really see the difference yet. But hopefully that helps, where you know that you can just name your family name in here, so you don't end up with like new font 1, new font 2, new font 3. Yeah, cool. Also let me know if there's any questions throughout me going over this. Okay, so we have that, and then let's go over adjustments first. So I'm gonna go over let's say, so I just spoke about doing the spacing, right? So so let's say you should judge spacing between N's and O's first. So once your N's and O's spacing looks good, then you can move on to everything else. But here, I'm gonna just go get everything that we have. So here are the letters. So if we see here, then we start to recognize like some problems here, which is trying to keep the stem consistent. And we can see here that the L and N are pretty consistent. Actually L, I, N are consistent. So how we can check this is that like there's this, there's this ruler tool up here. So if you see that ruler up here, you can drag this thing, and this ruler will tell you like, wait, why is it not working? Come on, ruler. This ruler will tell you how wide something is. So like I'm just dragging this ruler around, but if you like shift it, you can just keep it the same also. Do you see that? Yeah. So right now, like I can zoom in, but it doesn't zoom in with the letters, which is kind of annoying. Okay, maybe this will help. Okay, so it says 86, 86, 86. That's great. They're all the same. Now we're judging the D over here. Let's go over here. That's 87. That's really close. That's pretty good. The T is 94. So the T is way, way, way thicker. So you probably want to fix the T. We know that. Yeah. Ooh. Sometimes I just can't control this zoom thing. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So that is something we know we have to fix. And also like a shortcut that I use all the time for the ruler is that Shift Control Option Command. Shift Control Option Command. I know it's a handful. It just lets you like drag a ruler from anywhere. See how like I'm in like the pen tool or whatever, and I can still use the ruler. Yeah, so like that's what I do. So everything is 86, it looks like, but the T. So this is what happens when your sketch breaks, but it's okay. Unlock image. I'm just gonna delete that. So this should be 86. So I'm just gonna change that until it becomes 86. I'm just going to like quickly move this over here. So that's 90. Okay, so that's like 86, right? And you can make notes over here too. So see how like here's like dimensions. This is very useful. So I'm gonna be like 86. So I know that a stem should be 86. Yeah. So there we go. So there we go. And then like now the next problem is like the O. If you can see here, the N is 86, but the O is 100. Now we know that like curves should be a little bit thicker because of optical adjustment, but like that discrepancy is like a little too much, right? So like here I'm just going to, let me also clean up the point adjustment first. So if you see, if I click on red arrows, this is like the error flags that we were talking about, where it's missing the extremum. So like what I would do here is just go paths, add extremes, and if you add extremes, that'll add a point on northeast, southwest extreme. So it'll get rid of the extremum comments for the most part. So I'm just gonna Command J to put this in the background, and then just go to add extremes again. So I've added the extremes, meaning like there were no points in like the most northeast, southwest portion of the glyph. And so like you can get rid of all these extraneous points. Like here, I can just delete that. And if you see, like I've copied the old glyph in the background with Command J, so you can see that the curve is almost exactly the same. Just so I know I'm not like destroying your glyphs file. So here, like I'm just cleaning things up right now. So I'm cleaning things up. I'm probably leaving that there because that'll create. Oh well, maybe that change isn't too bad. Okay, so maybe I'll change that too. And then I'll clean this up because that doesn't look too different. If it doesn't look too different, like just get rid of it because less points the better. Okay, so here we still have an extremum, but like glyphs didn't automatically do that for me because there's a point that's too close. So it thinks it maybe shouldn't add one. So in this case, you get the knife tool, which is like the third one over here, which when you slice, it creates a point. So like if I slice it at the extremum, you'll get that extreme point, and I'll delete that. So there we go. So we have a structure that we can use. And I know there was a question about the inflection point. The inflection point means that the curve you have is an S curve instead of just one curve. So it's going to have a hard time like rendering sometimes. And an inflection point is something you can sort of ignore until the very end. Extremum points you should definitely fix. Inflections are not so crucial until you're like really cleaning it up when you're almost at a finished stage. But how you can fix them is that like, so why this is unhappy is because like this is like a very, very slight S curve over here. So if you like nudge this handle and make it just one curve, see like it only took like one nudge, then it disappears. So the inflection point is basically a fancy way of saying, hey, you need another handle here because I'm processing too much information. And an incorrect smooth connection means that you have handles, but like they look like they should be a curved point, but they're not. So here, what I can do is like, if I press space or double click and make a locked one, you also still need to wiggle with the handles a little bit. I'm going up and down here. Yeah, so that's another thing. But see here, I made another S curve and now it's like complaining because it's like, it's an inflection point. This often happens because see this grid over here? Like you're working on a grid of, maybe you can't see that quite so much, but you're working on a grid of 1,000 by 1,000 and your handles are always gonna lock on a grid point. So here, like you might just have to fiddle. I'm just going to like move it up and down until it doesn't see it anymore. So there I fixed the red arrows. Anyway, so I have a structure that's a little bit easier to work with than this is what it looked like before, just for reference. Command B is like toggling background and foreground, so I put in the background before. So see here, there's a lot of, I'm gonna get rid of it red arrow so we can see. It's a little bit harder to move things in this configuration. Having extreme points makes it a little bit easy to pinpoint what you're moving because they're at the northeast, southwest of each shape. So once I have that, I can also gauge what it looks like next to my N. So am I going too fast? Are you okay? Okay, cool. So if I do shift, I think it's, so if I go into, so I'm trying to see, is it in the edit window? Okay, so it says glyph, add component, shift command C. You can add a component in there. So if I add an N, I can see like this is like a shadow, like an alias of my N that I can see overlapped over my O. So if you see here, you can see that my O is quite wider than my N. Because of the optical adjustment that we were talking about before, we want the O to be wider, but maybe not this wide. And here's where you can make that adjustment where maybe you want your N to be wider, maybe you want your O to be wider, I'm not sure. And let's just for argument's sake, okay, so we've determined that the O is too wide, but let's like for argument's sake fix that N first. Fix that N meaning like, let's just make this wider. I'm not going to fix the extreme points, although you probably should. Okay. So let's double check again. So Command Shift C gives you that window. I'm going to bring the O. Okay, so like right now my N and O is like pretty similar. So I have that so far. Gonna lock. I'm double clicking this so it like locks the point, so it doesn't drag. Okay. Okay. Cool. So we have an N that's closer in proportion to the O right now. Although like I do think that this O is like really really thick over here compared to that like N. So let me just, I'm just like fixing the curves like slightly so it's not a reverse contrast. So it's getting really thick up there. And then so like I'm also going to fix this because according to, you know, like it says 95 in the middle, which is maybe okay because that's like, you know, like a 9-unit difference. But like if you see that ruler, you can also move it around. And it's 120, it's like basically like 114 over here. That's really, really wide. So I'm going to shift this a little bit. Yeah, so there we go. It's a little bit better. Because right now then it's like 102, so we've shaved off like 10 units. Okay. Cool. Okay, so this is, so spacing. So this is really important for everyone. So spacing, your O's, your O is going to almost always be symmetrical. Because even if it has an axis, if you flip it 180 degrees, it should look almost similar because it's a symmetrical shape. So right now, the core problem is that the O spacing is 39 and 21. So a good starting point for you might be just to even that out. So like maybe let's say like, let's have 35 and 35. And so like that's like about maybe where you want to be. And then let's say like let's put the N because you can't just judge spacing by one letter in itself because it doesn't occur that way. So I'm gonna go to the N. And this is an immediate problem because right now we've changed the spacing, so the N is pretty wide. And also the N has no spacing on the left side. So let's put in an arbitrary number to start with. Let's like start with something that's a little bit less than the O because the O is, oh, you know what? It's a serif though. So like let's start with like, okay, you have to start somewhere. Let's say like 35 and 35. Let's put that in first. The N is not a symmetrical letter, so it's going to be a little bit different, but you need to start somewhere. So you put in the N's and you put in the O's. So you see a row of N's and you see a row of O's, and then you see a row of like N's and O's together. So what you so if you see here, the O's are spaced quite wider than the N's, right? Like if you see like here, like the O's look if you see a row of O's and if you see a row of N's, the O's look more spaced out than the N's. So you're going to go back to your N and space it out a little bit more. Let's add space on the left side. Let's say like, you can also do plus down here. See these like 35, you can also do like math in here. So you can do 35 plus 10. Plus 10. Yeah. Yeah, it works like that. You can also do like, you can multiply, like many different things. Yeah, so that looks a little bit more comfortable now. So that looks a little bit more comfortable now. And then, so just because of that arch on the right side, and the serif on the left side, it's going to be a little bit different. So like, see how right now I'm looking at this glyph and it's like so obviously tilted to the right side. Like if you see like there's a line over here, there's a line over here. I'm just going to shift it. So I'm just like moving it. I'm moving it very slightly to gauge and have the same amount of space on the left side as like well as the right side. It's the same thing as like kerning, but just like look at it in your little square view. So like I'm just roughly going to say like, okay, maybe this is where I want to be. And it's always nice to have things in like rounder values. So maybe I might do like instead of 27, I might have 30, and then I might have like 60 over there, just so I'm not like futzing with like weird numerals. But you know, when you're moving around, maybe it's yeah. So I'll have 25 and 65. Okay, so then everything comes together. Like this is not set. Like if I adjust the R and it turns up everything is too loose or too narrow, then I'll come back and readjust this. But here, this is sort of a magical part that I want you to all see. I know like in this example, the D and E is not the same as the O, but technically they should be. And this is the magical part of glyphs. So let's say like you're trying to space the E, and you're always judging it between, as I keep saying, the E and the N and the O. See, so I'm just going to delete that because that broken image bothers me. OCD. But okay. But see the E value over here? The left side of that E should be the same as the O or almost approximately the same, right? So you can just put in an O. Magic. Isn't that magical? Yeah. See how like, so instead of like manually being like, okay, what is the O? This is 35. And then like doing that, you can just, here, I'm trying to zoom in over here. Okay. So you can just put in O on the left side. Yeah. And then now the E has always the left side of that O. Keep in mind that this also breaks when you change the O value. So like, let's say like, I made a mistake. I'm just 135, whatever. Like, see how like now all the O's changed, but the E didn't change? You need to go back, to the E and see that like little refresh button over here. If you refresh it, then it updates. Yeah, so you just need to make sure, see, I fixed the O again, and now, maybe sometimes it updates, but often it doesn't. So just make sure you're always updating it. And this has so many possibilities, right? Like, so like right now you can go N, N, D, N, or whatever. And then like, now the left side of the D can also be an O, right? And then so like, so, I mean, ideally like the D would look similar to the O, so you would be able to see like an even texture. But see, this is a way for you to automate spacing a tiny bit. But you know, what if your D actually didn't look so much like your O? So that's like a trap that you can fall into. Maybe your D does want to be a little bit thicker for whatever reason. Then you can't do this, right? It's a case by case basis. But like for your C, I know you don't have your C yet, but theoretically, you could also still go in and be like, give the C the O value. Oh, okay, that's not. O value, right? Now there's nothing in here, so nothing's getting affected. Okay. But what can you do when you have the N? What else could you space? Any letter that looks like the N? Yeah, M, R, Sort of. I'll go over that. Okay, so like M R U is what we said. So yes, the R definitely looks like the N, so we can definitely put in the N over here, and then so the N would be spaced. M is the M you can put in both spots, right? Like here, like N, and then you would have spacing for the M done once you have the N, right? The U is interesting because sometimes the U is not just like a mirror shape of the N, but for argument's sake, let's just pretend it is. Because it's not just a flipped version. But okay, but theoretically we have the U that almost looks just like the N. Okay, cool. So, but if we just blindly put in the N over here, it doesn't really work because that we're applying the left side of the N to the left side of the U, right? But it's a flipped image. So what we do here is, I believe it's this sign. Wait, is it backslash N? It's a equals. Okay, this is it. Okay, so this is the command. So if you do an equal, this is like does anyone know what this is called? The symbol. Wait, you know what? Why? I can just type it in here and then see what Clips thinks it is. Oh, I can't type it in. Okay. Like the bar thing. It's like the middle bar. The vertical bar. Okay. So if you type in the vertical bar, equal vertical bar, and then the letter, it'll give you the opposite value. So if you see here, you can see that the N is 25 and 65, but on the U, it's given a 65 value for the left side, and then we can do the same thing. So you can do equals vertical bar N, which will then give us 25, right? Yeah. So we've spaced the U. So everything is a little bit more increasingly automated. But be careful of doing this because obviously like the T, you're going to have to space. Nothing else looks like the T. The A, if you have if you have like an angled spine, then you also just have to space the A. So once you do this, you get a lot of freebies, but like not too much. Also a funny thing, let's say like for example, like you do have an O that's E that's wider for some reason, you can also apply equals O times 1.3. I think that also works. Yeah, see? You can also do multipliers. Yeah, so every time you update the O, this will also work. But let's go back to that. Cool. So those are cool features, and that's probably where spacing can be automated slightly. Okay, so we've been over red arrow plugin, renaming font file, spacing questions, spacing pairs is what we just talked about. All right, harmonizing letter stems, we just went over.
What is the best way to, so for example, you have an N, an R, etc. Is it better to just draw that one shape and use it for all of them? Or just better to make one letter and then copy it?
Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so that's a great question where like, okay, like what if you just want to make a serif component, right? And just copy paste the serifs or just one side of that N. So like here you can, so these are all letter components, but you can add different glyphs. You see how you can add glyphs over here? Let's say like I add a glyph for like, let's say like N, I don't know, I'm just making this up, like N stem. I made an N stem glyph. It's not a real glyph. Like if you see here, it has like unlike the N, the N stem has like no Unicode value. It really just exists only in this file. Okay, but let's use this. So let's have the N stem. This might be really cool for folks. So I want an N stem glyph. This is not like a letter, but this is just like a little component that I want to use. So maybe I get the N and I'm double clicking over here, so I get that part, and this is my N stem. And maybe I just don't have spacing because this isn't a real glyph. So I just have this N stem, right? And now let's say I want to make the M. And I go in my M, I do Shift Command C, or bringing in a component, right? Add component glyph. Okay, we're add component. Sorry. And I go N stem. So I have an N stem, right? And then like from here, maybe I'll just I'm just quickly making this. Don't make an M like this. But yeah, okay, so N, so I just updated that. Now I have an M, right? But yeah, right? And then like see that N stem component that I created right here. That's the component. Let's say like for instance, like I want to experiment with making my N stem way wider. Then I can go like this. Or I'm just gonna drag this. It doesn't look the best, but whatever. Okay. But now I have that, right? So and everywhere it applies, then it's going to be wider. Maybe the wide is not a good example. Okay, so I'm gonna put the N and M. Are there anything similar? Yeah. Okay, the U. Okay. Okay, so let's, for argument's sake, I'm gonna put this glyph everywhere where I have this. So I have the N stem on the N. And on the U, you can also, for component, you can copy them. And you can also transform them. I'm pointing at things you can't see. Okay, so like these here, you can also flip them. So flip, right? So we have the N component over here, right? So I'm just gonna delete that on the side. And okay, so we have that, right? And I just wanna change the serif shape. Let's just for argument's sake, I'm just gonna make a sans or whatever. Okay, well that's a crappy way, but like you see how that I changed one thing and now it's all the same? Yeah. But here's a downside. Remember how all that spacing I based on that N having a serif? Like now like that's gone, so I need to go back and respace this, right? Because without that serif there, that spacing looks quite different. It looks a lot more empty, right? So like this is the one thing, like it's sort of like a card of decks that you've like a what is it called, the card house? Deck of cards.
House of Cards.
Yeah, the house. Yeah, where you build this like giant like Jenga tower with like cards, and you shift one thing, and now you have to shift the other to make sure like the whole card house doesn't fall down. Yeah. So if there's anything about type, it's just that like you just have to keep going back and forth and fix this entire ecosystem of letters you have going on. Yeah, so that was a great question. Thank you. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so we have those and optical adjustments. So I think that will help with the optical adjustments to start with, because then once you can have like the N's and O's like looking the same, then you can go in and be like, okay, like my let's say like my R is looking higher, for instance. Like now you have the N to judge with and the O to judge with. So I think adjustment we were talking about remember guides we talked about last week, where like the guides were going to be a good thing to have. I'm gonna make a global guide that's in red, and I'm going to put it on my O. Okay, so my guide, I'm gonna put it on my O. So like my O is like over here, right? Like I've matched that. And so this guide is going to stay with me. So I'm moving on to my N, and definitely seeing that N is way lower than the O, right? So although that arch should have it overshoot just like the O does. So I'm going to take that and apply it. And once it locks, it'll get that little diamond shape. See, not locking. So that's like one way where you can gauge it, because now you can see that the R is quite low, so you can also fix that R so it goes about the same height and so forth. Okay. Okay, so leading is another question. Leading's always tricky, and NG. Okay. Unlock image. Okay. Leading is another question. So leading, when the default leading actually has a lot to do with the master info over here. Like see like ascender, cap height, x height, descender, italic angle. So like if you have like a descender height that's lower, it'll accommodate it. So if you like put in a height where like the descender okay, let's put it this way: if you scale everything to be smaller, then you automatically get more leading, right? But alternatively, you could have like metrics that are like wider. So if you do like descender negative 400, and I'm going back here. So see how it just jumped now that you have a descender value that's like way lower? Then the leading will accommodate for that, as far as I'm aware. So that's something that you can change. So if you change these parameters, it'll change whatever is auto-calculating the leading. One thing to keep in mind though is that leading values you can change. Leading values aren't like a mechanical value that you're putting. It's not like it automatically pads a certain amount. It just takes the metrics for the font and then it just calculates, oh, this is how much it should have. Like, you know, Adobe, you have like the auto setting. Like that Adobe just like sees like font information in here and like be like, okay, like this is like sort of how much it should have. So like if it bothers you, just in InDesign, like just so like here, when you're putting in information, see how it like you're probably almost always using the auto value when you're having issues. So if you're having issues, manually set it, like so like increase the leading instead of like auto value, and then from there we can work with you to try to figure out a value for getting your leading to the point that you want it automatically. Because like there's like it's going to be like a pretty terrible process if you go like descender 300 expert font, descender 400 expert font. Like that's not the workflow you want to have. So adjust it in InDesign and then we can figure out software parameters. Okay, cool. I think Leah, you mentioned ligatures, right?
Oh yeah.
So ligatures are also something we can make. So in features, it's an open type feature setting. Sorry, I'm gonna bring in. So some ligatures have always existed, as in software and historically. Like if you add glyphs like FI, for example, like an FI ligature, like it tried to automatically make something for me. So like an FI ligature, like if you can think of an F and an I, that collides a lot. So FI ligatures even have a Unicode value. Yeah. So like FI ligatures are somewhere where you can have like the F and the I, and then in glyph software, like in features, if you just like update, like it'll just this is like the greatness of modern software. If you click on standard ligatures, it says sub FI by FI. So like every time an F and an I is typed, substituted by the FI glyph. Now maybe you want a custom one. I don't know what it's gonna be, but like let's say for argument's sake, I want to add a cat. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, this is silly, but you can have like like a TF ligature or something like that. But for demonstration purposes, let's say like I have it. Okay, whatever. Just bear with me here. I'm trying to keep people awake. Okay, so see this like okay. Like, I don't know. Okay, we have a cat. It just kind of looks like an emoji or something, unhappy emoji. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we have a CAT, and then so like what I'm gonna do is go in this like features, and in ligatures, I'm gonna have, so this is automatically, so it like automatically generates features. I'm gonna uncheck that because Glyphs doesn't automatically think that you're gonna substitute a CAT with a cat. So I'm just gonna say sub CAT by, I think this is, you have to get the glyph name right. So see how this is like CAT under here? So I'm gonna say C underscore A underscore T. And then for those of you that code, you know that you automatically, you always need something to let the computer know that it's done. And then here we update it. It also has added in discretionary ligature. Doesn't matter. Okay, so it's worked, right? Like I updated it, it's in the font feature. I'm gonna go back to my typeface. I'm just gonna pretend like there's a C in there. It works either way. So features here, do you see these features? You can turn these on. So discretionary ligature standard. Oh, so I'm just gonna type in C space A space T, which is different from the CAT put together, just so you're seeing this. So features, standard ligatures. Aha! Right, isn't that cool? Okay. So another thing is that like you need software that recognizes that this has happened. So I'm just going to I'm just for argument's sake, I'm just gonna bring in like a C looking shape just so you see something. Okay. This is like arbitrary values. Okay, so I'm just going to okay, awesome font. I'm gonna get rid of this. It's a regular, and I'll export it. I'll just export it to like my desktop or something, just so you can see it. Okay, so here I've exported it. I'm going to desktop, awesome font regular.otf. Oh wait, I have it automatically open up in Glyphs. So right click, open with font book. I'm just going to install this, and then here I'm going to go in InDesign. I'll just open up a new file. Book. No. Not a new book. Come on, load. Okay. So here's a new file. And I'm gonna type in cat CAT, and then make this really large so you can see it, right? And this is Minion, so it's not doing anything, but I'm gonna change these two to awesome font we have here, right? And it's changed it automatically. Look at that. CAT and Minion is that, but an awesome font. So I'm gonna undo this. So this is like Minion Pro. I'm going to change the last one only. So like awesome font is now C. But the funny thing is, like, if I put see how like the space bar is kind of like moving like this. If I press a space, it goes back into CAT. So like here, I can be like, okay, so like I'm just gonna so CAT, and then it gets into a cat face again. Okay, so that's kind of like a fun little detour.
Yeah, if you were gonna make like a script font, you don't have to do like connections for A, B, C.
Yeah. So theoretically, if you wanted a handwritten font that wanted to look natural, you would have to have like ligatures for like almost every other. But you can sort of also automate that too, like like they just go at the same angle, but then it doesn't look natural. So that's the trade-off. Mm-hmm. But this isn't features. So if that doesn't ever work for you, you can go in like window, like type in tables, like character. See here, like that, like character space over here. I'm just gonna select that, and then see how it's like right now. It's awesome font regular, and then see open type features. I have contextual alternates turned on. If I turn that off, it should. Oh, sorry, and ligatures turned off. It goes back into CAT, right? So I need that ligature function turned on. Obviously, if I highlight it, it'll just also suggest that maybe I can turn it back. Yeah. I mean, that's a silly example, but theoretically, you should have like an FI, FF, those things. Cool. Okay. Are there any other Glyphs questions at this point? Cool. Okay. So I'm just trying to give you little bits of information each week, so you're using all of these as you go and not overwhelmed. Great. Gonna stop.